Hello, and thank you so much for joining our Regional Fund Technical Assistance webinar today. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to learn a little bit more about how these grant cycles will be changing over the next year. A little bit about myself. I am Danielle Tong. I'm a Community Research and Grants Management Officer for the Columbus Foundation. I support grant making here. I also do a bit of the programming around nonprofit capacity building. And I also support the Jackson, Hocking, and Fairfield counties. I also do the general kind of management of the regional fund. So if you have continued questions, you can feel free to come to me. Before we dive too much farther into the program today, I would like to introduce my colleagues whom I know you will get to know over the course of the time. First off, I'd like to introduce Henna.
Hi, so my name is Henna Masood. I've been at the foundation for 3.5 months. I do grants management and also data and reporting. I'll be serving Guernsey County, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lomax to introduce himself. Mark, are you there?
Yeah, I was having issues getting everything off. Mark Lomax, Dr. Mark Lomax, Community Research and Grants Management Officer. I'm supporting Logan County.
Hi, my name is Matt Martin. I'm a Community Research and Grants Management Officer. I've been with the foundation a little over 3 years. Work with a number of our supporting foundations in the youth education and social services spaces, and we'll be supporting the regional funds in Ross County.
Good morning. You can't see me, can you? Even though I have my video on, I'm very sorry. My name's Emily Savers, and I have been at the foundation for 30 years. And in addition to working with nonprofits on the grant applications, I do a lot of the grant management functions, and I will be working with the funds in Seneca County. I'm going to pass it off to Dan.
Good morning, everybody. Dan Sharp, Vice President for Community Research and Grants Management, and I have the pleasure of serving with all of my colleagues for the grant making function and connecting to individual donors as well as all of our supporting foundations and ensuring that they are aware of the pressing needs that your organizations and missions work on every single day. Thank you for attending today.
Thanks, Dan, and thanks all of my colleagues for joining us for a minute to introduce themselves. Before we go further, I learned that we may have an issue with audio, and I'm wondering if folks can just let me know if you're having any audio issues in the chat box, and that'll help me know how big the problem is. I'll appreciate that. Next up, before we go on, I wanted to make sure that you knew a little bit more about today. I'm going to tell you high level, very generally, how the grant cycles will be changing. I'm also going to pass this over to Melissa McCool, who will introduce herself in just a few minutes, and she'll give you a tutorial of how to access our new application. I will also wanted to highlight there's a Q&A section towards the end of this webinar. And how Q&A works for this is if you take a look at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A button there. And if you click on it, you're able to type in and ask questions of the panelists during the webinar. If you go in and you ask a question or you see a question that's been asked, you're able to upvote that question. So what that means is that we get a sense for the most pressing questions, which we can address head on initially, and we can also learn just what is most important for you to hear about. If we're not able to get to all of the questions today, I will try to capture all of those from the Q&A section and put together an FAQs for after the webinar. This webinar is being recorded, so that means that it will be accessible after this. It will be sent out to the email addresses that you accessed this from. Additionally, it'll be available on the website where you will access the applications. And if all that fails you, you can always feel free to reach out to me and Melissa for any questions that you'll have going forward. So having said all of that, there are a few changes that you should be aware of around the grant cycles. I know typically you've been used to accessing these various fund counties in different ways. We've unified that so that there is a single style of application for each fund, and you'll access those through a web-based portal, which Melissa will be taking you through later today. Another highlight of that is that these applications have the final report feature embedded into the application. And what that means for you is that if you are reapplying for a grant that you applied for last year, you applied for a fund last year and you're applying for a new grant from that same fund, you will click yes to a specific question, which Melissa will show you, and your final report questions will become a drop down. If you are not reapplying for a fund, that means that at this period, you will not have a final report due. It will mean, however, that when you reapply to that fund again, you will need to complete those final report questions at that time. This is something we are still evolving in, and so we'd love to hear your feedback across the year as how this worked out for you and whether this feature is beneficial for you. And with that, I would like to pass it over to Melissa to introduce herself and to take us through the application.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Melissa McCool. I am the Associate Grants Manager here at the Foundation. I've been here 10 years now, and I've been working with these regional funds the entirety of my tenure here. So I've probably interacted with most of you by this point through email, most likely. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. Let's see. Okay, so with the new format, because we're going to have an online application, you will need to log in or create a login here on our website at columbusfoundation.org in order to access that application. The login button is going to be at the top right-hand corner of any screen that you land on here on the website. So when you click login, if you already have a username and password, obviously you can go ahead and enter those here. Or you can use the forgot username or forgot password links if you haven't been in the system in quite a while and can't remember them. Or you can go ahead and register as a user. So this would be if you don't have a username and password yet, you would go ahead and click register. And that will take you to this registration page. It's pretty easy. You just enter in your information, first, last name, email address. You create your username and password here. And then you can go ahead and create that login. So I'm already logged in here. As you can see, it says my name here at the top with this little caret. If you click on your name, it will go ahead and give you options. You can go to my dashboard, which is where you'll find things like if you have a directory listing with the foundation, if you've made a gift, any previous applications you've submitted, or my settings where you can change things like your password. So if we go back to our home page here, I just want to show you where you can access the page for our regional funds. At the top left-hand corner, we have a menu button. It will open up the menu here, and you will want to scroll down to our nonprofit center. In the Nonprofit Center on the left-hand side, we have this toolbar here as well, and that's where you'll go ahead and click on Grant Opportunities. And our regional funds are under our Funds for Targeted Needs, and you'll click on that link for regional funds. So that will take you to our main page for the regional funds. And this is where the link will be for the application when it is live. So each fund has its own deadlines, meaning that typically a month before that deadline is when you'll have a link that's available. So the name of the fund will be turned blue at that time, and you'll be able to click on it in order to access the application. So I'm going to go ahead and show you, once you log in, you'll click on the link here, like I showed you, and then it will take you to your login page. You'll log in and land directly on your regional fund grant application. So each one will start with an eligibility quiz. You'll answer the questions appropriately and then click submit. And if you qualify for the regional funds, it will take you directly into your application. So they're really general questions to begin with here. Just organization name, your address, contact information. So you'll just enter in all of that content. And once you do that, you'll go ahead and click save and continue or save and exit. Everything with an asterisk is going to be a required field. So I could type in our organization name here. I can save and exit if I want to come in and work on it at a later time. In order to access the application that you've already been working on, however, you do not want to access it from the original link. You'll want to log into your account. On the left-hand side, you'll want to click Applications. And that will take you to your page where you can resume the application that you've been working on. So I'm going to click Resume on an application that I've previously been working on. And it'll show you all of the content that I had entered in earlier. So our CEO's information, the contact information is not required, so I'm not going to enter that. I'm going to hit save and continue. And then this is the information about your final report. So as Danielle was talking about, this new feature is that you won't submit it via email as you have in the past. There will actually be a question on the application. Did you receive a grant in the previous cycle? So if you click no, it won't ask you any more information. If you click yes, then it will ask you to enter in the information for the previous grant. So you'll just want to enter your grant ID. You'll enter the answers to these content questions here, and then you'll move on to project information. So just general information, dollar amount, the purpose, start and end dates, just some brief narrative questions here as well. Once you're done with those, as you can see, these also have a character count. So when you type into the box, the character count will decrease as you type. We'll hit save and continue here, and that will take us to our application attachment page. Each application will have attachments that you need to complete on your computer and then upload to the application itself. The operating budget and project budget are going to be Word documents that we have created for you. And you will go ahead, click on the link, download it to your own computer. It will be a document that looks similar to this. You'll save it to your computer, complete it, and then you'll go ahead and upload it to this application. So you can add a file just by going to your files or your desktop, wherever you saved it. You can remove files that you've already uploaded as well, or replace files. And then again, all of the asterisks mean that these files are required. So the operating budget narrative, the project budget narrative, and these letters of recommendation are not required. I have uploaded documentation for those required fields here. So I'm going to save and continue. And our last page is just a review. So you can go ahead and check all of the information that you've entered into the application. You can click edit and it will pop you back into these sections in order to edit the content if need be. But if not, you'll go ahead and just click submit at the bottom here. And once you submit, you'll get a thank you on this page. And then you'll also get pretty instantaneously an email stating that you've submitted your application. If you do not receive an email, then you are going to want to contact us because you probably did not actually submit your application. So again, if you did not receive that email, definitely contact us to make sure that it has been submitted and that we have received it. I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing on my end. And Danielle, if you want to take over, I will stop my video.
Yes, thank you, Melissa. That was an excellent overview. Now we're into the Q&A section, and it looks like right now we have just one question regarding the application process, and it is if an organization is not reapplying, but they do, and they do not have to complete a final report, but they want to, is that not possible? We have not, we will be removing the link that gives PDF to final report on the website. So if you're an organization that would like to complete a final report, though you do not intend to reapply for an upcoming grant, please reach out to me directly. That will give me a good idea of the volume of requests that we get for that specific situation. As I said before, this is our Q&A section, so I'll give a little more time for folks if they want to ask any additional questions. And if we don't, then we can certainly wrap up. Before we do that, Melissa, would you mind going through, do you have access to the budget sheets? That may be new to our regional fund applicants. Would you be able to show those really quickly?
Sure, let me pull them up first. Give me a couple minutes.
No problem. While you're doing that, we received a question in the chat box. So I want everybody to know that I'm not necessarily monitoring the chat box for questions, but this popped up for me, so I want to make sure I address it. The deadlines for 2021 are all remaining the same. So the deadlines that you've experienced in the past are going to be the same for 2021, and those are listed on the right-hand side of the website, so you'll know exactly what those deadlines are. And as Melissa said, the applications for each of those funds will go live approximately a month before the deadline. All right. So we have another question that says, if we have an active grant in 2021, will we submit the report through the online system this year? Yes. If you are reapplying, the answer is yes. If you are not reapplying, you are not required at this point to submit a final report. If you would want to do that, please send me an email. My email contact information will be on the last slide once we get to the end of this this webinar. And final reports will only be done when reapplying for the same grant, correct? No, if you are an organization that is applying for a fund, the same fund that you applied for, regardless of the purpose of the grant in the past, complete a final report in that application for whatever it is that you did the last time you received funds from that fund. So if you are an organization that has applied to one of our regional funds in the past, in the previous year, it doesn't matter what the purpose was, you'll still need to complete those final report questions in your application process for the next year.
Do you want me to pull up those budgets, Danielle?
Yeah, what you do that, and then I'll go back through and answer as many of the questions as I can.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Okay. So this is the organization budget form that you will be asked to fill out. You literally will just enter the content into these boxes here and tab over. Once you do that, the form should total for you. So it looks like it's not right now, the one that's uploaded, but I'll go ahead and fix that. So you'll go ahead and just tab through and just enter all of your content in based on your revenue and your expenses. And then if there is any information where there is an asterisk, then you'll want to explain that in your budget narrative, and there's a spot to upload that on the form as well. So that's just something you would create as a Word document on your own computer. And then we also have, along with the organization budget, we have a project budget, and that is very similar in layout, but it's anticipated and committed dollars for the actual project itself. So same thing, just fill in and tab over, and then everything will total for you once we get these forms all set up. Let's see.
Thank you, Melissa. So we do have a couple more questions, and Melissa, I think this is one that you will be the best person to answer the question for. It says, does your online system allow more than one user to look at the grant account? For example, executive director or grant writer?
So that is a good question. It does not. So the system works where the person who submits or starts the application is the only one who's able to view it. You can't share it amongst separate logins. So what you'll want to do is either let your executive director access the application from your login, or you can go ahead and just kind of print out or put in a Word document what the questions are and what the answers are. So unfortunately, you can't share amongst separate logins.
Okay, we have a couple more questions, and I'm going to kind of roll them into one because they are in the similar context. The regional funds don't typically grant for multi-year grants. It happens on rare occasions, but it is certainly an exception to the rule. So you won't necessarily be receiving a multi-year grant from a regional fund. And if you do, because of that rare exception to the rule, then I will work with you directly on your reporting responsibilities for those intermediate grants. I want to reiterate that the deadlines for these applications are not changing this year. So you will find the deadline right there on the website. Melissa, we got a question about whether you can print applications once you've completed them.
Yes, you can. So let me go ahead. I'm going to pull up on the actual application page here. So when you have completed or submitted an application, you will see, so here you can see that I have an application that's in progress, and I can resume that application as long as the deadline hasn't passed. Or I can view one that I've submitted. So when you click on this view function, you can bring these cascades down to view the information that you've entered. You can also print that content. So you just click that print button, it'll bring up a screen that shows a PDF form, and then it'll print as well. Oops, not going.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm looking through the questions to see if I have any more. Let's see. So we have a couple of questions about being able to download the questions in a Word document. At this point, that's not something that's available, but you can go in and begin an application and save your progress as you go. I'm correct about that, Melissa? There's no way to pre-download questions, correct?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Okay.
There
yes,
is a question, it looks like, in the chat box too, Danielle.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Can you submit final reports and applications separately at different times? If you have a deadline, an application deadline that's coming up, please submit your final report in the context of that application. If for some reason you feel as though you'd like to submit a final report and you're not applying, then please feel free to send me an email and I will make sure that you get a final report form. And as I said, the deadlines are all staying the same in 2021. And so at this point, the regional funds have not changed their focus based on COVID-19. They still have, even through 2020, have granted through the same focus areas, and there hasn't been any indication that the funds will, the advisors will choose to pivot for specific reasons. They may, and I will say this, they may receive an influx of applications more so than they did in prior years, which does make the decision-making process more challenging for them. But the focus in and of itself has not changed. So we see that question. So I want to reiterate that when you are applying for a new grant from the same fund that you've applied in the past, the program doesn't matter as much. It just matters that you complete the final report for the previous grant that you applied for. And I think I've covered most of the questions that I see here. And so if that is the case, we can certainly wrap up. Just to confirm, does multi-year mean original application was for multi-year? Yes, so multi-year means that you receive one grant notification for multiple years worth of funding, and that is not common. If you continue to have questions around this and your organization would apply for or has received in the past a multi-year grant, please reach out to me and we can troubleshoot that specific instance. I'm happy to chat about that. I think I've answered everything that I see in the chat box. I haven't gotten to click everything, but in just a few minutes, we will have a final slide that shows my email address and Melissa's email address. For many of the questions in the chat box, you can feel free to email me. I'd be happy to work through those with you. If you have specific questions about the application itself, how to log in, how to access certain things, Melissa is our go-to person for that, and she'd be happy to help you. Her contact information will also be on that final slide. With that, I think we can wrap up, and I'll be looking forward to hearing from each of you throughout the various grant making processes. I understand that this year is going to be different from others, so please don't hesitate to ask questions. It is something I expect, and I'm excited to get to know you better, so please don't hesitate. Thank you so much, and that's all we have for today. And enjoy the rest of your day. It looks like we're gaining about a half hour back.